We're going to something new now, HTML forms. The form element. HTML forms are used to collect user input. The form element defines an HTML form. So we'll have something like this. We'll have an opening tag form, then we have the form elements, then form inside. Now, HTML forms contain form elements. Okay, just like I've explained here. Form elements are different types of input elements, checkboxes, radio buttons, submit buttons, and more. Now let's identify each of them. The input element. The input element is the most important form element. The input element has many variations depending on the type attribute. So the type attribute is the non-global attribute used. So these are the classes that come under the type attributes. We have the text, we have the radio, we have the submit. Okay, text defines normal text input, the radio defines the radio button for selecting one of many choices, and the submit defines a submit button for submitting the form. Okay, so these are the variations of input elements we have in the form. Now let's describe how they will look like. The text input. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to put the input type text. Now that defines a one-line input field for text input. So I want to take this example here. We're going to identify someone's first name and last name. Okay. Then we're going to use the input type of text. Then we'll see how it displays on the web page. Okay, so let's create some space here. BR, put another BR, maybe another one, a HR here. Okay, so type on form. So we're going to put first name here. Don't worry that I didn't put in the P tag, it will still display the BR, so that there will be a space between the text and the input itself. Okay, so inputs. Go with the type of text. Right. Okay, then we have to give it a name. These are best practices that enable the input elements to work well. Okay, the next, let's create a BR here, so that we can have space. Then we have a last name. Then input here, and go with the type of text. The name, we're going to use last name. Alright, so we're ready to view it. Let's see inlet 5. Okay, there you have it. You have first name and you have a text box in there where you could write your first name. I'll go ahead and write mine. You can write yours while you're typing. The last name, Hanson. So you can see the type elements are fully functional. You don't need to style it for it to work. Okay, so the radio button inputs. Now this is going to be written as input type radio. Now this defines a radio button. Okay, radio buttons let the user select one of a limited number of choices. The radio button, like you see a kind of a little circle at the edge of the choices. So this is how we're going to take an example here. We write input type of radio, name, and the value. Then you see the function of check there identifies that that is the button that will be starred already. Okay, you don't really have to use it, but it's just to show people that these buttons are clickable. Okay, so when you have an element here and you put a checked attribute, that means it's going to have it checked already. Okay, you're not going to check all of them. So most times for best practices, it's good to use it. Okay, so let's try something here. Let's put the BR here and input. Input type, we go radio here. Okay, with the name, do sex. Value, male. Okay, so then here we write checked. Okay, so that it appears checked. Write the male just outside of the bracket here, so that the radio button is just beside the text. Okay, we write another one here. Input type, radio. Name, sex. Value, female. You're going to put checked here, so we just write female outside of the bracket. Okay, let's save and preview this. Now you can see that the male radio button is checked already. Okay, you can always check the female and check the male. Fully functional. So write Harold here, write Hanson. You could write your own name, like I said. Don't need to write. Maybe you're a female, write your name and check on female, just to see how it works. Okay, so this is the first basic step of creating your forms. Let's move on now. The submit button. Here we have input type, submit. This defines a button for submitting a form to a form handler. Okay. The form handler is typically a server page with a script for processing input data. The form handler is specified in the form's action attribute. Okay, so we're going to take this example. Now notice that the action is written in the opening tag of the form. Okay, it's an attribute that comes inside of the form tag. You know, because whatever action that we're trying to achieve has to affect the whole form. Okay, we're submitting everything, every element inside the form. So let's start something here. BR. Okay. Now inputs. Let's go with type. Submit. Then we go with a value here. This is going to be different. It's not going to be a name. So submit. Now that's what's going to be written on the button. Okay. So right here in the form opening tag, we're going to write the action underscore page.php. Using PHP because we're dealing with server type commands right now. So let's save and preview this. See how it works. F5. Scroll down. You can see the button there, submit. Now when you click on the button, it's supposed to take you to another page. As you can see, I've not linked the page to it yet, but it's obvious that it's functional. Okay, so when you write your name, you take on whether you're male or female, you hit and submit, it takes you to a new page. Okay, so now let's explain what this action attribute really means, what it does. The action attributes. The action attribute defines the action to be performed when the form is submitted. The common way to submit a form to a server is by using a submit button, just like we created here. Normally, the form is submitted to a web page on a web server. That's why we have an action. In the example above, what we just did, the server-side script is specified to handle the submitted form. Like you see here, like what we did, we had the action page.php. Now, if the action attribute is omitted, the action is set to the current page. Now, there's another attribute called the method attribute. The method attribute specifies the HTTP method get or post to be used when submitting the forms. Now, when you write the action attribute, you put a method to either get or post the form. I'm going to explain what these mean so that you understand what we mean by getting or posting. Now, when to use get? You can use get, which is the default method, if the form submission is passive, like a search engine query, and without sensitive information, like all those like Google search boxes. It doesn't contain sensitive information. Now, when you use get, the form data will be visible in the page address. So on the page address, you will see something like this that's showing you where it's getting the form from. Now, when to use posts? You should use posts if the form is updating data or includes sensitive information like a password. Okay, so you don't have the address of where it's getting the form from. You understand? Post offers better security because the submitted data is not visible in the page address. Alright? So we use get when the information is not sensitive, and we use post when the information is sensitive. Okay, the name attribute. To be submitted correctly, each input field must have a name attribute. This example will only submit the last name input field. Now, if we have this example, you could see that the first name, right, input, we have a type and we have a value. In the last name, we have a type, we have a name, then we have a value. Now, if we submit this form, only the last name input field will be submitted. Okay, because the name attribute is very important when you are submitting the form. Okay, that's why here we wrote name. Now let's change this to value. Okay, so we could write something like, so let's preview it and see. So you can see that first name has come out as a placeholder because we put it as a value. And you'll be saying, hey, but why are the boxes still showing? No? It may still show. Why are the boxes still showing? Yeah, it may still come up when you're on your web page, but when you submit the form, it ain't going nowhere. The web only recognizes the elements with the name attributes. Okay? Value here to Mickey. Let me write the value here as mouse, since the value in the other one is Mickey. Save and preview. F5. So we have Mickey and mouse. So whenever you use the value option, you always have value already written in your text box. So you could see that if I change this guy, if I delete it, grouping form data with field set. The field set element groups related data in a form. Now, the legend element defines a caption for the field set element. So in this example, we're going to have another form. We're going to have a field set. We both put the action. We're going to have a legend and add to this. So we could create a form, or let me just add it here. So we create a field set here. Delete this and put it under here. So here we get a legend. Let's go personal information. Okay, let me close the field set. Let me shift these guys in. Okay, it looks good. Let's save and preview this. Okay, now you see this. Our form is kind of in a box, and you have the personal information written on the line as a dummy line. That's the default way to write the legend. So the legend always appears on the line. So let me put a BR here instead, so that we remove the HR so you can see the dividing line more. And you see the personal information, that's the legend written on the line, on the boundary line, then you have the form everywhere else. Okay, so in this kind of situation, it's going to be easier to style the form to maybe have a background color or something. HTML form attributes. An HTML form element with all possible attribute sets will look like this. I know this looks like something that's kind of hard to get. So we have the action, we have the method, the target, we have accept char set, accept character set, we have the enc type, that's the encoding type, and we have the autocomplete of, we have no validate. So this is how a complete attribute set would look like in the form. Okay, I'm going to explain all this, but let's just see what's the difference here. What's all this fuss? I hope you remember from our hyperlinks what using the target blank means, because it's going to have the same function, obviously. Okay, accept char set UTF-8, that's accept character set UTF-8. Our documents are in UTF-8. I told you before that when you're writing a web page, the character set to use is UTF-8. So here, accept character set UTF-8, encoding type, application. So X www form URL encoded. I'm going to explain all this. I'm not going to explain all this down later in the course, but let's just see what happens. There's going to be any difference. Autocomplete, we'll put it off. Then no validate. no validates. Okay, so this is how typical form will look like. So, but as you can see here, nothing has really changed, okay? But if I right click here and let's say I click on submit, this is what happens. It goes to a different tab. Remember I said the target of blank, just the same way like a hyperlink, it works. That's the same function it does on the form too. Okay, it's the same command. All these added attributes just tell the server what to do with the form. Okay, I'm going to explain each of them later. So for now, here's a list of form attributes. So you could take it down. Accept char sets, action, autocomplete, ink type, method name, no validates, and target. So take it all down and I'll see you in the next section.